Hey friends, welcome back. I'm indoors bringing this to you today because it's raining and cold and miserable outside, but that's not going to stop us from planting our tomatoes and peppers and starting them early. And I'm going to show you how to cut through all the confusing information you get out there. You can start very simple indoors without a huge operation like I have. And I'm going to share the best varieties and peppers that I have used that are tried and true and that I'm excited to share with you. So stick with me and let's dive in. First, you want to start with a quality seed mix. I do prefer the Jiffy brand. It is organic. It has other things in it like peat moss and a little perlite in there. Kind of keeps everything nice and loose. It's what you want for those little young roots to be able to travel through there and expand. I usually add a little extra peat moss and perlite to mine just to make sure it's extra fluffy. And I add all of these things and mix them together well. And as long as when you're finished, it looks like this, nice and fluffy and soft. And you're going to fill each one of your pots with this. And I use the peat pots because then they can absorb water really well. And it's a little bit bigger container, which I prefer because I need a few, probably 6 weeks for my seedlings to stay in here until they get big enough to plant out. You're just going to push it down the soil a little bit and add a little bit more because when you water it, it's going to compact it down and I want it to be almost filled to the top. So I'm going to water these before I actually plant the seeds, just so that the seed mix will be nice and damp and moist all the way through. These are my gypsy sweet pepper seeds that are bell peppers. They're a long type of bell pepper, about 4 inches long, and they're very prolific, very easy to grow for beginners. I put about 4 in each little peat pot because I want to make sure I get really good germination. And peppers take about 3 weeks to germinate, sometimes a little less if the conditions are right. These bell peppers I'm putting in a rainbow mix. They also are a type of pepper that grows very quickly and is very hardy and can grow in our extreme conditions. You want the soil to be between 70 and 75 in order to help these germinate. The peppers and the tomatoes like warmer soil. So you can plant them out once your soil is warmer, or you can start them indoors with a heating mat. I'm planting the Sun Sugar hybrid variety of a smaller tomato. It's indeterminate, but it grows very quickly within 60 some days once you transplant. It's a wonderful tasting tomato, and I adore it. Brandy Boy is also another hybrid that I'm going to be planting. It's also an indeterminate tomato, but very flavorful, bomb-proof. Basically, this plant will grow no matter what, and you'll get lots of wonderful tomatoes. It's very prolific. And I'm going to list all of the varieties that I'm going to be planting in the description so that you have a list. And you can also go to my link in my actual garden plan and scroll down, and it will tell you all the varieties that I use in my garden, when to plant them and what season, and how far to space them apart, and general companion planting for it, and lots of other useful information. And here I'm just going to spray the top with moisture just to make sure the seed and the soil and the water all have contact with each other. And I'm going to cover it with a dome to keep that moisture in as long as I can, because you want to keep the soil damp but not overly wet or soggy. You want to keep it moist during the whole germination period until your little seedlings pop up. And then once they do, you can water accordingly, but don't water from the top because that can cause dampening off and can kill your young seedlings and cause you to have a low germination rate. So always water into the tray and let the soil draw up the moisture that the seeds are going to need. So as you see, it's pretty easy to plant the seeds. If you follow these steps, you're going to have successful germination. So now that you have the seed planting part of it down, let's go to the next step where you're going to have your seeds growing under your dome or in your pots out on your porch, or if you bring them indoors to start them now in early mid-February under a grow light. I've brought in my tray of newly planted seeds with the dome, and I've placed on a table, And what you need to do is try to find a window in your house with nice bright light that comes in at least a good portion of the day. So that's where I've put mine. You don't need to really run the grow lights until you see your seedlings pop up, but I kind of like to start mine from the beginning and set up the timers and just be consistent so it won't hurt if you do it from the beginning. The tomatoes will take about 7 days or less to germinate, give or take, and the peppers will take much longer, usually about 2.5 to 3 weeks. But once they germinate, you can take the dome off and water accordingly and give them more airflow. These are the tomato seedlings at about 2.5 weeks, and I'm going to wiggle them around as much as I can to imitate the wind, and it will strengthen up your little seedlings and make them a little bit hardier, as if getting ready to go outside and having the wind blow them around. Definitely makes the stems thicker and sturdier. So you want to make sure you do this as often as possible. The smaller seedlings on the left are the peppers, and they're coming along. And the bigger seedlings, of course, are the tomatoes because they do germinate much more quickly. So you will notice a difference in the grow rate in these, but you can treat them the same way until they get big enough to plant out. And you will want to take the dome off and let the air get at them and turn the light on. Make sure your grow lights are on about 12 to 16 hours a day. The plants do need a time of darkness, so make sure your timer is on or set your phone. Make sure you turn it off for a little bit of the time. Once your seedlings are about an inch or two high, that's when you should start fertilizing them. They've gotten all their nutrients from the actual seed to germinate, but now they need nutrients from you that you're going to put in every time you water. I normally use Alaska fish fertilizer, which is organic, and I use it 1/3 of a strength of whatever it says on the bottle. You don't want to burn your tender little seedlings, so only use it 1/3 of strength of whatever the instructions say on the bottle, and use it every time you water until your seedlings are big enough to plant out, and then you can start using the more concentrated version of your fertilizers. Your seedlings should be big enough to become transplants, to transplant out into your garden, to make wonderful tomatoes just like these in about 6 to 8 weeks. So I normally take my average frost date and I back it up 6 to 8 weeks, and that's when I start my tomato seeds and my pepper seeds. And by that time, the weather and the soil temperature are warm enough to transplant everything out. And here's a recipe from my keeper book that you can use those tomatoes and peppers in. And it's very easy to make, and I hope your family enjoys it as much as mine always has. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me. I hope you've gotten something out of it to help you plant your seeds for this coming season. So as always, try to stay warm, spring is coming, and go out and make yourself a great day.